When does a boycott become bullying? The clothier LL Bean says the answer is when a company is targeted because one of dozens of owners supports Donald Trump.
That's all they are.
What are your friends?
Small kernel of hardcore bullies out on the West Coast in California trying to control what we do, what we buy, what we sell in Maine.
Linda Bean, who contributed to a pro-Trump fundraising group, is talking about a mammoth boycott of nearly 50 companies by an anti-Trump group called Grab Your Wallet. The list includes everything from department stores such as Macy's, Bloomingdale's, and Nordstrom to online sites such as Amazon, and of course, LL Bean. Some were targeted simply because they advertised on Trump's reality TV show, The Apprentice. Few might have noticed until Donald Trump alerted his 20 million Twitter followers in a thank you to Linda Bean. And in an unusual step for someone who's about to become president, he called for people to buy LL Bean products. That prompted LL Bean to object to the boycott in its own statement, lamenting that 5,000 workers could suffer because, in their words, only one of 50-plus family members personally supported Donald Trump for president. Some political scientists question the fairness of targeting an entire company and its workers for a boycott simply because some of its executives exercise their democratic rights. More importantly, they say, a boycott this broad is likely to fail.
Unless the boycotts have a really discrete, sort of very narrow focus, and they have a goal. You know, like, what are you asking for in this boycott? Do you want to change company policy? Do you want to destroy the company? Because I certainly wouldn't want to see LL Bean destroyed. I'm wearing their underwear right now.
For LL Bean, it might have all gone easier if the president-elect had opted not to say thanks. John Hendren, Al Jazeera, Chicago. The murder rate in America's third largest city is worse than the two biggest cities, New York and Los Angeles, combined. It's left many residents physically and mentally scarred.
Someone could be on the side of your house dead at any time. It's scary. It's scary. And when you get out your car or you walk from a bus stop, will you be the next victim?
She's hardly alone. A Northwestern University study found women in violence-prone Chicago neighborhoods show the kind of trauma experienced by residents of war zones.
Many of the women that were participating in the study were reporting traumatic experiences and symptoms of trauma, and that was coming up time and time again.
Since 2001, there have been more than 8,000 murders in Chicago, killing more Americans than the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. The longest the city went over the past year without a fatal shooting was 4 days. Yet police stops and arrests have dramatically dropped. So as shootings have risen, police have actually grown less aggressive. Chicago's last police chief says police are stepping back after public furor over incidents like the one that got him fired, when an officer under his command shot Laquan McDonald 16 times as he walked away from police with a knife in hand.
Officers are under attack. That's how they feel, right? That's how they feel in this environment. And they're not going to put themselves and their families in jeopardy.
Unless something changes in the coming year, the combination of increased shootings and relaxed enforcement does not bode well for America's most violent major city in 2017. John Hendren, Al Jazeera, Chicago.
Unless you're flying with a stuffed dog like this, before you take your pet on a plane, you've got to make sure that it's a safe experience, not only for your pet, but also for the people you're flying with.
I know you've never been in a...
Before you or your dog ever get to the airport, the animal needs to be prepared for what's coming.
If they're going in a carrier, get them acclimated weeks, if not months before going into the carrier, knowing that it's a safe space for the animal so that they're comfortable getting in that when you need to transport them.
Flying your animal in the aircraft's cargo hold or in the cabin depends mostly on the size of the animal and its function. A service animal must stay with you. If it's a pet, it'll be restricted to whether it can fit under the seat.
The smart thing to do is make sure the animal is comfortable with the owner traveling with that pet, or putting it in cargo, which nowadays is very, very well regulated.
These days, a lot of people claim they have emotional support animals, and that can be almost any kind of creature. Both the airlines and the American Veterinary Medical Association are working to limit emotional support animals to just cats and dogs.
If you are traveling with an animal as an emotional support animal, you need documentation.
Generally, requirements for service or support animals include a signed document stating the animal is trained to behave, a letter from a vet saying the animal is in good health and vaccinated, and if it's an emotional support animal, a signed letter from a healthcare professional stating that 48 hours before the flight. Now, some of those requirements vary, so check with your airline well before you fly. Over 500,000 pets flew with their owners last year, and your job is to make sure if you take one, they fly not only comfortably, but safely. To help you do that, I've included some links in today's web story. Working for you, I'm consumer investigator Steve Spracia.
For many people, an upset stomach might be the result of a bit too much time spent at the dinner table or at happy hour. But for others, abdominal pain comes from a much more perplexing source. It can strike early in life and leave in its wake shattered confidence, strained relationships, and oftentimes debilitating agony. It's Crohn's disease, and it is a most unwelcome dinner guest.
At its worst, my Crohn's symptoms had me running to the bathroom almost every hour. I was vomiting all the time. I was in extreme pain. I was losing weight. I couldn't maintain a healthy weight.
Deborah Wise is one of more than 500,000 people in North America alone who suffer from Crohn's disease. Like most GI diseases, Crohn's affects its patients in different ways. But one of the common threads is that it often afflicts young, active people. For them, the emotional impact of their diagnosis is often as severe as the physical one.
When you're a teenager, having Crohn's disease can be really embarrassing. You have to run to the bathroom all the time. You're nauseous all the time. You miss a lot of school. I think I had missed so much school in my junior year that I actually had to go to summer school. And by the time I was in senior year, I had missed so much school that I actually had to drop out of school. I couldn't graduate with my class, and I ended up having to get a GED.
Crohn's disease is a type of inflammatory bowel disease and may affect any part of the GI tract. As a result, the symptoms of Crohn's disease can vary between affected individuals. The main symptoms are abdominal pain, diarrhea, and weight loss. Gaining a semblance of a normal life is foremost on the minds, not just of those suffering from Crohn's disease, but also for those who are finding ways to treat it.
As you know, the Crohn's population of patients is a very young and active population. And so some of the things that we've been thinking about are things that make it more convenient for a patient to be treated as they are getting, as their disease is actually improving, so that they can go back to work and have their daily living activities back to normal.
For researchers, doctors, and their patients, the path back to a normal life can often be an evolving process. As the medical community gains greater understanding of Crohn's disease, they're also developing more tools with which to combat it. But with greater choice comes a greater need to choose a treatment path wisely.
But I think when it gets more interesting and there are more drugs to choose from, then I really think that the pressure is going to be on us to identify ways of identifying who's going to respond to anti-TNF, who's going to respond to anti-IL-12/23, etc. So it'll be, it'll be better because we'll apply more personalized medicine approaches to that problem.
Patients who have Crohn's disease have some important options, and I think it's become more important than ever that they become educated about the new treatment options, as well as talking to their doctors and getting additional opinions when necessary. So a patient really needs to understand what treatment are they on, what are the short and long-term goals of this treatment, and what are the potential risks and complications from being on this therapy. It's been an exciting year for Crohn's disease, particularly because we have a new biologic therapy available to our patients, and the research we're doing on other therapies is advancing as well.
Advances in research and treatment options for Crohn's disease have been encouraging signs for the medical community. While the causes of the disease are still under considerable scrutiny, there's a growing consensus on the timing of treatment.
At the moment, I think my bias is that we're treating inflammatory bowel disease at a very late stage.
More recently, we've been really focused on the question, should we be using biologic therapy and immune-modifying drugs earlier in our treatment course with patients who have Crohn's disease? And that question remains unanswered, but it's of great interest to us.
Even with the very effective therapies that we now have with us, it still seems to me that we are treating it at the phase where we've allowed this process to fester, and we have an adaptive immune response characterized by the overproduction of TNF-alpha and other important cytokines that dampening that, of course, does help the disease.
Getting to the root of the problem has led researchers in places like the University of Chicago hospitals and the Mount Sinai School of Medicine to think outside the box.
Now, the current theory is, and it makes a lot of sense, that there are certain genetic predispositions interacting with some ubiquitous environmental factors that are responsible for letting this inflammatory process run unchecked, like a stuck accelerator without an adequate brake. But the fact is, when we think about it, the genetics account for only a small fraction of the incremental risk or vulnerability to the inflammatory bowel diseases, and these genes have been around for millennia. So the question still arises as to what it is that's happening in this century, in the developing world, that is causing essentially an epidemic of inflammatory bowel disease.
On the treatment side, self-administered drugs and other therapies are offering lifestyle choices to patients who previously had few options.
One of the problems I had with all the different therapies was all the pills I had to take. I think at my worst, I was taking anywhere between 20 and 30 pills a day. And then also there was the infusion therapy. I had to actually go to the doctor's office, stay there for about 2 to 2.5 hours to get the therapy. And I had to have a nurse do the infusion.
But while self-administered drugs and other treatments offer promise for today, the future of Crohn's disease will continue to attract research dollars and some of the best minds of the medical community.
So I prefer to have, to not rock the boat and to leave people on whatever therapy they're on. But if there becomes a need to change, and the need to change could be people developing infusion reactions to infliximab, people that are requiring much higher doses of infliximab more often, that in fact aren't coming once every 2 months, but sometimes as frequently as once a month. There, I think the equation changes and it becomes more logical to change therapies.
In the first of our special 2-part clinical presentation, Dr. Rex's review strategies to achieve excellent bowel prep in the highest percentage of patients possible and thereby improve detection of colorectal neoplasia.
So colonoscopy has really transformed gastrointestinal medicine.
If you want a coffee in can, you order it here in a cafe and you have it sitting down. There aren't any drive-thrus and you won't be running around with a paper cup. They put it in a real cup and they even throw in the little spoon in the saucer for free. It's all very civilized. After all, you're in can. In can, people come to see stars or they come to be stars. Do you have what it takes? Can you direct? You're in can. You'll find plenty of red carpets in can. But this is the one that matters. It's in front of the Palais. It's where for 60 years all the greatest stars and directors of the world have made grand entrances. Do you think you can get here? You think you have what it takes? Can you direct? You're in can.